Welcome, everybody, to episode 173 of Two Goalies, One Mic, brought to you by Fattey Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at all their locations. And, of course, get your hands on, while supplies last, their 24 Beers of Christmas Advent calendar. I got one this year as a gift for my dad and for myself. The different varieties of beers they have in there are second to none and just makes a perfect holiday gift for a loved one, or a friend, or for yourself. And, of course, Buffalo Go Apparel, whether it's your supporting the Bills or the Sabres, your shirts, your hats, your hoodies, they have all the best local designs over at buffalogo.com, at buffalogo.co on Instagram and Twitter. You can find Fattey Beer at Fattey Beer on Instagram and Twitter, or fattybeer.com. I am Duane for Connor Hurls. Did we record? No, that's right. I did a reaction video. That was our last episode of the Kevin Adams presser, which we really touched on live together in full extent since he did it. But I think the fans have kind of spoken how they felt quite a bit about the Adams press conference and how they've played since. Kind of let you take the floor and tell the people how you have felt since that press conference and the team's performance, and they're pretty much, how they've reacted to it, how they've responded.
Yeah, apologies. I'm still getting my voice back from the weekend of activities out here in LA when the Bills were out here to play the Rams. Obviously, a pretty insane game in its own regard, and that is an entirely different story. But yeah, it's funny. Adams says the palm trees line as you see palm trees out here, and you think about, oh, we've got state taxes. New York's not the only one with state taxes. Buffalo's not the only market with bad weather. It's not the only market with non-tropical weather. Winnipeg, for instance, Liam McHugh from TNT sent out a tweet today at the airport, or he quote tweeted a scene of Winnipeg today. It looks like a frozen tundra, and he asked where all the palm trees were. So not only has it sparked a chord within the Buffalo community of fans bringing inflatable palm trees to games and wearing Hawaiian shirts, which is just an all-time troll by Sabres fans, and I applaud them for doing so, and I hope that they continue to do that to strike home the point that was a cop-out. That was, in my opinion, a really immature and misguided thing for Kevin Adams to say. I was wondering how Terry felt about it, but then as I was waiting for us to get on here, it almost feels like something that came directly out of Terry's mouth, if I'm being honest. And it's really ironic because they don't say the same things about the Bills, which in the NFL scheme might be even harder to attract free agents, given the fact that it is such a small market in a U.S.-based market of huge U.S. cities and in a much more national and internationally relevant sport. So all of those things considered just make it absolutely insane to me. And it is, as I said, a cop-out to the fact that they haven't accomplished anything in the past 14 years, but even since Kevin Adams has been there, they haven't accomplished anything even in the past 5 to 6 years. So really disappointing. I was hoping that he would at least say nothing except for something like that. But unfortunately he did, and here's where we are, 11-14-3. You can look at it glass half empty or glass half full. Glass half empty, there are a point away from last place in the Eastern Conference. Glass half full, they're 3 points out of a wild card spot. So it just goes to show you how weak the Eastern Conference is this season.
Yep, I agree. Just like the brainless, the thing with the Bill, like the comparison to the Bills too, it's like, first off, like even during the drought, the 17-year drought, like they were still able to get like Pro Bowl caliber players to come to Buffalo, like guys like Tequila Spikes and London Fletcher. Fuck, Terrell Owens came here. Even for just 1 year, he came here. And who was more polarizing than Terrell Owens, whether it was a publicist or stunt or not, he came to Buffalo. So like to sit there and say that, and what irritated me the most like we understand what you're trying to say, Kevin. We get it. Yeah, Buffalo's not the most. When you have your pick of the litter in free agency and you have teams calling you, like Buffalo in terms of, temperature, location, yeah, maybe not the most ideal place you want to go, especially, if you really haven't spent a lot of time here, because we all know how great of a place Buffalo can be once you give it a chance. But what pisses me off is a year ago, he's up there talking about, oh, once players get here and they know how great of a place this is, how passionate these fans are, and it's a great place to raise your family. Like, you're going to want to be here. You're going to want to fight for this city. You're going to play for this city. You can't then the very next year get up there and complain about the lack of good weather and palm trees or complain about the taxes. Like, you can't have it both ways, Kevin. Like, you can't do that. And that's what pisses people off. It's just like, it's almost insulting. Like right here at Gabriella, a couple clicks, I think she's a new viewer. Thanks for coming on with us. Please subscribe. Embarrassing press conference. He is making Buffalo look worse and more isolating. I have to agree. Like, what did you do for your franchise and your city by saying that? And now it's a national media talking point. Like, I'm at Mohegan Sun right now for work, and on the way up here, it's 6.5-hour drive. We're listening to, shout out Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen, from the Morning Cup of Hockey podcast. I listened to that on the way here. And like that, they're on with Jeff Merrick, and like literally that was all they talked about during their show was Kevin Adams' comments at that press conference and just the current state of the Sabres. Like, you just took something that was really bad and made it so much worse, Kevin.
Yeah, and that's why I was thinking about what Terry was potentially thinking, because I think the next question for all of us obviously is, when does the rubber meet the road, and when would Kevin finally lose his job for this team not succeeding as much as they have, at least in the past 7 games? He's the next guy to go. Obviously, Lindy wouldn't be the first guy to go compared to the two of them. So it's also frustrating because I really do believe that their opinions and their comments, and apparently they speak every day, those comments are absolutely tied to ownership. Terry's obviously frustrated that he hasn't made the playoffs in a full season as owner of this team. And he lives down in Florida, and he's obviously had so much success with the Bills, and he's understandably frustrated with what's happened with the Sabres. And that's got to be coming from his room as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's just really no justification for it whatsoever. You could disprove that with so many other markets, with so many other cities. Just because Florida won the Stanley Cup this past season doesn't make it the word of law. They were bad for 10 plus years, and then they finally made the right trades. They made the Kachuk trade. They traded for Reinhart. They signed Bobrovsky. They made a series of correct moves, not only with free agents, but drafting and developing and making really good trades to make their hockey team and that market more appealing. Even now, Florida Panthers games are the number one activity, number one entertainment source in South Florida. For the most part, I would say that it's not even one of the best environments in the National Hockey League. And you know damn well that Buffalo is one of the best hockey markets in the country, given what's happened here in the past. When we've been good, when we've actually been putting a product out there that makes the fans want to go to games and makes other players want to come to the team and not have Buffalo on their no trade clause list. Yeah. So it's really tied to obviously the fact that the organization is a dumpster fire at the moment, and they're just trying to do anything they possibly can to save face. And it's just really, really disappointing and insulting to all of us.
I couldn't agree with you more. A good comment here from Joey Pecoraro. Sorry if I'm misspelling that, but like, this is a talking point too. Hockey players grew up in cold weather. Why the hell would they care about that? The fact is, he didn't let a star get a surgery, and it tainted the organization. That's a fact. And we were a lot of people were on the side, and myself included, with Jack Eichel. It's your choice, it's your body, your choice. But from a player's perspective, obviously management is going to have their perspective, because I think there are a lot of management who are quietly on the side of Kevin Adams with that whole situation. I think I have to imagine. I mean, obviously Vegas was willing to take the chance. I wish we would have, because I felt pretty confident with everything that I researched and read that he would have been fine with just getting the disc replacement, not the fusion. But being a player and seeing the way that all transpired, that isn't a good look on the organization, especially when you're trying to lure players to come play for you in free agency.
No, absolutely not. And the entire thing was way too over dramatized, and it lasted way too long, number one. And it came at a time when the franchise was at its worst, in the midst of, I think, right afterwards, an 18-game losing streak. Obviously, you had players already that had left the organization, like Ryan O'Reilly, who appeared to have lost their love for the game and then went on to win a cup in St. Louis. So it's not the first example. I don't think it'll be the last. And I also don't think that it's the number one reason why players don't want to come to Buffalo at the moment. The number one reason is the organization hasn't made the playoffs in 14 years.
Yeah.
They can't seem to get out of their own way. They can't seem to do anything with the pipeline in the years of prospects, in the years of top draft picks to draft, develop, put a consistent winning hockey team out on the ice. Winning would solve absolutely everything, as it did in the 90s, as it did in the early 2000s. That's the only thing that matters in any pro sport, whatever level you're in. If you have a consistent product out on the ice that brings fans to your building, creates an atmosphere that's sustainable for everybody, it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in Winnipeg, you could be in Buffalo, you could be in Palm Beach. It doesn't matter whatsoever. You just have to win. And as we've seen, and now we're seeing currently with this group, they can't even hold a 2-goal third period lead, let alone a 3-goal third period lead. They are consistently not mentally and physically capable of being a consistent NHL hockey team. And that is shown with the roster construction. That is shown with everything that's been said and done within this organization for a long time now. And that's the only reason, point blank period.
From another new viewer from in the Peanut Gallery, Jay, like, I think he wants to stay the course with kids and draft picks, and he doesn't want to say that. I mean, yeah, it's clear. I mean, I think it's pretty, easy to recognize that, he plans on, continuing the course and sticking to the plan, developing through the draft. But to your point earlier, Connor, like, you have to be able to, lure players in here in free agency. You have to be able to make good, sensible hockey trades. Like the Ryan McLeod, that was a good, sensible hockey trade. But like, what have you done for me lately, Kevin? Like, you're in the midst of a 7-game losing streak. You're making comments that are essentially like backhanded comments towards the city and our temperature and our taxes and this, that, and the other. Like, what have you done for me lately, Kevin? You're not helping your cause. Like, listen, we all know why you're there. Like, again, listening to that podcast with Johnny or, Lazzy earlier, like, they didn't really kind of get deep because they're not from here. We understand why Kevin is in the position he's in. It's not because he has this massive amount of experience being a GM. He has very little on the business side of NHL hockey. Like, he's there because he's not going to say no to Terry Pegula. That's why he's there. He's going to do what's asked of him. He's essentially going to ask permission to do things instead of just doing them the way Tim Murray did, and Tim Murray, at least he worked, he GM'd with a pair, you know what I mean? He wasn't afraid to take chances, unlike Kevin, who just is very close to the vest, he protects, the prospects that he's drafted. He's very protective of picks. I think Matthew Savoy, even for Ryan McLeod, I mean, at right now, that seems like a very easy trade, a win-win for both teams. But like you have to be able to do all those things correctly in order to build a successful franchise. And that's where he's falling short. Or does he want to do those things? It's just being told no.
I think it's a combination. I think we all know an internal cap exists. I think we all know why he was even promoted to GM in the first place after being in the organization, working in the hockey school, being an assistant coach. He was the only option left that made any type of sense whatsoever when it didn't even make that much sense in the first place. It really seemed like a panic hire. It seemed like something that needed to be done in the moment to save face and also save money. And to Kevin Adams' credit, with no experience whatsoever in any front office, I think he's done a fairly good job with drafting and developing in making some good hockey trades. And
Mm-hmm.
even like we've talked about with Jason Zucker, people were upset with the $5 million a year that was given out, but it's proven that he is a very capable NHL hockey player. And it turned out to be a really, really good deal and someone that they would probably want to re-sign next year, because what this team needs is experience. They need guys that have been in the league before and have proven that they can win. And he's showing on a night-to-night basis that he's not only providing the energy, the leadership, but he can actually play hockey. He can actually make plays and help this team win. So he gets full marks for all of that, for the Ryan McLeod deal, for the Bowen Byram, Casey Middlestat deal. Bowen Byram's been amazing.
He's been great. He's been fantastic.
Especially since Dahlin has been out. He's been our top defenseman. He's been logging the most minutes. Offensively, he's been producing, and he's also been relatively good in his own end. So he has made some good moves, and he gets credit for those. But no matter what happens, if you lose 7 games in a row, you're going to start to hear it. If you give up a 4-0 first period lead and a 4-1 third period lead, and then a week later give up a 5-3 third period lead against a team that you're competing with and also competing with them in terms of their own rebuild, that's obviously going to happen. Nobody was saying anything after the 3-game win streak after the West Coast swing. I think that's the best we felt about the Sabres in a long time, maybe since the end of the 2022-2023 season. Everybody thought that this team was different, that they had the ability to come back from early deficits, to play as a team and actually provide meaningful ways to play hockey. It really looked, especially seeing it in person, they looked like a different team. But obviously that appears to have been a mirage at this point, as they have now lost 7 in a row and have only gained 3 of 14 points.
I like what you did there. It was a mirage. I like
in a desert of no palm trees. So it's really disappointing, and I think he, as much as anyone, as much as all of us, and even as much as Terry, they obviously just want this team to win. We all want this team to win. We all want them to do something to provide us with any type of joy whatsoever on a consistent basis related to the Buffalo Sabres franchise, because we haven't had that in a really long time.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, it's tough. And, shout out to some more new viewers. Thanks for joining the program first time. I'll always give you a shout out. Fire Pagula from Shane Doyle on YouTube.
I haven't heard that one before because they literally can't.
Yeah, we literally can't. We would if we could, but yeah, we definitely can't. Not a playoff team since April 2011 is straight up fucking nasty, where people must lose jobs.
Let's count how many people have lost jobs since that day.
Doing a much better job.
Hundreds of people have lost jobs since 2011. Hundreds. Yeah. I would say maybe even more. It has gotten to the point where if they don't win, more people are going to lose jobs. And if those people that replace them don't win, they're going to lose their jobs too. It's the nature of sports. It's as simple as that.
From Kevin, even if Kevin Adams gets fired, Terry will just have another yes man with less GM experience. I sometimes wonder how this guy got so rich. Oil makes you rich, man. If that pretty much that's it. What site has the next fired GM odds? I want to place a bet, or at least see if it's there. You can pretty much bet on anything these days. For the most part,
I would say he's the number one candidate, probably given the history.
Pretty damn close.
There's, every other team at the bottom of the league that is currently in a rebuild has a more, I would say, recent GM that has a longer leash. But we also don't know how long Kevin's leash actually is, given the things that we've discussed about his relationship with Terry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And then another thing I want to talk about is just the response in this team to that press conference. You saw UPL like a tweet, throwing shade at Kevin Adams, which of all the guys on that team that I wouldn't expect that from, UPL probably was the most random. Is this becoming like an inside joke in the locker room now at this point, seeing stuff like that?
I would hope not. I would hope Lindy has at least a little bit more control from that standpoint. Of course, it's a young team. These guys have social media. Hockey players have a lot of downtime together just to hang out, and I'm sure that they talk about it and they joke about it. But at the same time, their job is to win hockey games. And currently, in 17 days now, they haven't done that. So I think that's their primary concern, right?
Yeah.
Like they're only adding to the jokes if they don't go out there and execute. If they go out before a third period at home, up 2 goals against a pretty bad hockey team, one that's even worse than themselves at that point, and give up a 5-3 lead and then lose in a shootout. Like they can joke all they want, but at the end of the day, Kevin Adams can't go out there anymore and play defense. They can't cover the front of the net. They can't make a save from the half wall like James Reimer did on the 5th goal last night. Like,
yeah, that was bad.
It's not just on him, but every single level of this team over the past 7 games has failed in one way or another. That has led to the fact that they've only gotten 3 out of a possible 14 points. So it needs to change Wednesday, and it's against a team in the New York Rangers that is absolutely not meeting their own expectations of what this season was going to be. They're selling. They're apparently open for business. They're also very desperate. Mm-hmm. And that's going to continue to happen as you get through December, as you get through January. You're going to be playing a bunch of desperate teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, where it appears every single team is in it, given how many middling to bad teams there are in the wild card race. So it's gonna mean something every single night, and you can't be satisfied with loser points like they didn't get last season.
How freaking suck was No Rainbows Reimer last night? Imagine UPL or the Beast in the crease for the shootout. That question, we did talk about, I think, in the group chat a little bit, or at least it's on Twitter, is like, would it have been like a insulting move to Reimer to move it to UPL in the shootout, knowing that he's been much more successful, at least this season? Like, I wouldn't have been opposed to that, even sending him in cold. Like,
I just get scared about that, especially with his injury history. Given he's had injuries this season, and
I can go either way on it too.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth the risk. I really don't, personally.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, looking back at it now, you kind of wish you did.
I think UPL absolutely would have done better, and there's a chance he wouldn't have gotten hurt, obviously.
Yeah.
But think about the guys that Reimer did go up against. Like, if you're going up against 3 guys in the league in terms of like their top 3 guys in the shootout lineup, Lucas Raymond, Patrick Kane, and Dylan Larkin are a pretty good top 3. Those are 3 really, really skilled guys. Mm-hmm. And I would say that 75% of goalies in the league don't make all 3 of those saves. So obviously he wasn't great, and he wasn't great in the 3rd period. But I don't think it would have been the best idea to put our starting goalie, who we have a lot of our hopes hung up in, cold in a shootout and risk injury.
Yeah. From Chris Durek, friend of the program. Let's face it, we all believed in Terry's bullshit in 2011. We saw a guy who had the money but doesn't have the knowledge. Kevin is more of a mouthpiece for Terry than a GM. We got false hope in 22-23. Like, I will say that too, because we all know that Terry Pegula was the ones who orchestrated the signing of Christian Ehrhoff, overpaying for him. Bringing in Ville Leno off really the only thing he showed in his career at that point was that playoff where he kind of went off. I think with Detroit, maybe, or was it Philadelphia? Yeah. I mean, has he taken a step back? I don't know. I think there's just too much proof. And I tweeted this out earlier last week. I was like, taking a step back and looking at the press conference, like, does Kevin deserve blame here? Yes, he does. There's a lot of blame, but like, in the same breath, who else is going to do better given the circumstances with ownership? Who else is going to have Terry Pegula's trust the way Bean and McDermott do to run this franchise and get it back on track? Because time and time again, how many GMs how many coaches have we been through? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Terry was the one who wanted Lindy. You know what I mean? Like, granted, he was the one who fired him, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I want Lindy back. I think he's available. Let's go get him. Like, and Kevin's like, yeah, sure. Like, you think back to that blue and gold embedded when they signed Taylor Hall. Like, Terry is like in the room, like, if we sign this guy, we're not just trying to compete. We're trying to win a Stanley Cup. And Kevin, you think, again, new GM, you think that he would know enough to say, well, not really, Terry. We have more holes to fill. Kevin's like, yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Like, no, man. Like, you had like 4 other holes you needed to fill on top of bringing in Taylor Hall. Would it have made you maybe competitive to compete for like a wild card? Yeah, sure. But like you were no shape or form competing for a Stanley Cup with just adding Taylor Hall on a 1-year deal with a full no move clause. Like, no. And I ask what GM is going to get better results than Kevin. I'm sure they're like they would, but like, how handcuffed is he?
I would say pretty handcuffed. And it goes back to the Bills discussion. And it's really fascinating because, as you said, the best decision Terry's ever made with either team was bringing in McDermott and then giving McDermott full control of the entire program. And McDermott probably made that clear when he was hired that, hey, I know football. I've been in football for 20 plus years. I want full control over who my GM is going to be. And then the combination of the two of us are going to take control of this program, and we will not hear anything from ownership when it regards to player personnel, what's going on. Terry's provided the money. They have some of the best facilities in the entire league. They have, obviously, it seems like a blank check in terms of how that entire building and that organization is run. It is one of the best run organizations in pro football at the moment. That also speaks to that they get credit for drafting Josh Allen, but they didn't know that Josh Allen was absolutely going to turn into the league MVP. Having a quarterback who is the league MVP makes the entire franchise better. And they, of course, they scouted him and they traded up for him, so they get full credit for that. But they are also really, really unbelievably fortunate that he turned into what he did. Hockey's obviously a much different story. There's not a guy that you can bring in, like it could have been McDavid. Obviously, the ping pong balls didn't go their way. But let's say they do get Connor McDavid. That probably changes the course of the franchise. It really does. So, of course, there's a lot of luck involved, but he's also been very stubborn when it comes to bringing in a president of hockey operations. He said that in the past. Mike Harrington has told us, and we don't need to continue to say it or continue to say that's what they should do because it's not going to happen. Number one, doesn't want to spend the money for it. And number two, he just doesn't think it's necessary. So it's a moot point. And until it happens and we're all surprised, it's not even worth discussing anymore. So it really comes down to resources at this point. And of course, the Bills are getting more. And that's why everybody thinks that Terry should sell it to somebody who cares a little bit more. But if he does, there's a chance that they get moved, and nobody wants that either. Yeah. So it's a catch-22.
From Big Fungus here, comment from YouTube. Okay, if a GM is that handcuffed and can't actually do anything, then Terry needs to sell the fucking team and fold operations. Like, what are we even talking about? And then another new viewer, not F _ a bunch of other letters and numbers. We traded away Eichel, Reinhart, Ristolainen, and Montour in the past 2 seasons, put those players back on the Sabres, and we are cup contenders. I don't know so much about Ristolainen. I know he made Team Finland, but yeah, man. But like those players, like, you know, culture means something. It does. I question the work ethic of this team, their willingness to play the Lindy Ruff brand of hockey consistently, because we have talked on the post game plenty of times where we're like, man, like they really are just out there grinding out wins, not giving up, you know, winning gutsy games. And then you get these 7 games and you look at the games as a whole, and maybe you look at one where they really played well and deserved to win and didn't. And just, I don't know, man. Like when a player gets to the bench after a shift, I want to know that they've exerted every ounce of energy they had in their body in that shift. And you never want to question, you know, whether they took a shift off, which we've seen quite a few times over the 7-game losing streak. I don't know, man. Like, you know, I went to the Utah game, and after shout out to my buddy Mike Carr, who runs the Buffalo Sabres Warriors Foundation, you know, hockey teams for veterans. He does stand-up hockey and sled hockey. They played a couple games down at KeyBank Center. I stayed and supported it. Just show some love. And, you know, I watched both games, and, you know, there was a meet and greet because they did have 2 alumni on the ice, one for each team for both games. And there was a meet and greet with those alumni. Both, you know, you might be able to guess who they might have been, you know, if you want to go do your research. But I spoke to one of those alumni, and not to call them out, I don't really ask anything they care out, but like, it's regardless, and I know Terry has really improved the alumni side of things and the way the alumni has been treated for the most part, but like the perspective of the roster itself and the way this team is been, it's pretty prevalent even into the alumni. They want to bite their tongue and not say certain things, but like this certain individual did not mince words, and he said, it's almost a generational thing, like where the past 2 generations of hockey player have been coddled too much and have been, you couldn't treat these kids the way we were treated. We were willing to skate through a brick wall every single shift to win a hockey game. Like he goes, we weren't good enough on talent alone to win a hockey game. We were lucky we had a world-class goalie, but like every single game we went out there not to play for just ourselves, but for each other. And most of all for the fans in the stands. And at the end of the day, we left it all out on the ice. And you look at this team, like, really, do you really think this group is willing to do those things on a night in, night out basis? He goes, no, they're not. And it's sad because it's just this city deserves so much better. And like to hear an alumni, respected alumni, say something like that, I think that speaks volumes, Connor.
It does. It absolutely does. And it's disappointing to hear, obviously, but that's what this has come to. And that's what a losing culture is always going to turn into as it continues to happen. Look at the New York Jets. Like, they're the only other professional sports team that is in the midst of a 13-year plus playoff drought. They're doing whatever they possibly can, but they're not winning on the field, and people are losing their jobs, and people are embarrassed. And they are currently apparently at the mercy of Aaron Rodgers in terms of what he's even going to do next season, as he was the de facto GM of this entire season. Mm-hmm. So there are different ways to go about it, but at the end of the day, as we said, nothing's going to change until they win. The fans aren't going to come back.
No, they're not.
The team isn't going to get respect outside of the locker room, around the league. Nothing is going to change until they win consistently and they get to a point where people can trust them again, because at this point, it's about as bad as it's ever been. And that's really saying something, because it's been pretty bad at certain points over the past 12, 13 years.
I do want to give a shout out to, I met him I think it was after the Utah game. I believe his name is Brett. He's B Rizzle Rabbit on Twitter. But we had a very similar conversation after the game, and just like what made me think about that is just right here. This comment here: Cousins is 23, Quinn 23, Paterka 22, Power 22. Hell, Dahlian is 24. Think about what you were doing at that age. You need vets. Young kids who give 2 fucks about a team in the 2000s and legacy. Yeah, like agreed. Like I agree, but like I look around the city of Buffalo from a hockey standpoint, and kids from those generations and before, like 25 and younger, like if you ask them who their favorite hockey players are, or who they're, like they're not saying Sabres players like it was with us. Ask what their favorite Sabres team. It's not the Sabres. It's because they've grown up just to nothing but mediocrity and losing, that this city has really just become detached to this team. And it's just becoming like same old Sabres. Like, we will never have a winning hockey team. It's just negative. The negativity becomes so exhausting, Connor. It's so fucking exhausting. And like, that's why, like, I didn't want to do a post game after Red Wings game. I texted you like, no, man, I don't have that energy. Like, I had to finish packing to come here. Like, I just, even if they would have won, man, like why? We've missed 2 post games this entire season. I think we've done a pretty good job for the most part, staying on top of things with our live reactions. But like, it was just so fucking exhausting to watch that game and know that in that third period, a 2-goal lead, I know one of the worst leads in all of sports and all of hockey, like just knowing just deep down, they're going to lose. They're going to find a way to fucking lose. Just like in the Colorado game at the end of the first period, I said during my intermission report, it's like, Colorado's really coming on strong there at the end of the period. Don't 40 minutes of hockey still have to play. And then the second they scored the second goal in that Colorado game, I was like, this game's over. We're going to lose. I thought we may at least get to overtime, but the Sabres were just playing scared, and they get to the bench. You just don't see anybody standing up, yelling at each other, trying to encourage each other. Like, let's fucking go, guys. Let's get our heads out of our head. Like who is that guy right now on this team? that's doing that.
I mean, it does seem like it is Zucker, to be honest. And
But it shouldn't be him.
I know, but it's an example of a vet, and it's a guy that's been around a lot of different NHL locker rooms. It shouldn't be him, obviously, but it seems like he has taken on that role. And I think a little bit Alex Tuck as well, but he's also a guy that came from elsewhere. But you need it from these younger guys who have been here. You need it from Cousins. You need anything from Dylan Cousins. Apparently, he was given an assistant captain role for a reason, but he hasn't done anything to show that he was worthy of that whatsoever. He's completely lost his game. Something's really wrong with him, and that's representative of the entire team in this core at the moment. That, of course, they showed promise. Of course, they had all the pedigree, and they even had the stats to back it up in their first couple seasons. But everybody aside from Tage, when it comes to that core, obviously not Dahlin, he's not playing at the moment, but even Peterka doesn't look like the same version of himself as he did early in the season.
Oh,
he looks a little bit lost out there. He doesn't look as fast. He doesn't look as physical. He doesn't look like the guy that we were all really excited about. So it's really, really concerning and disappointing. But I will say, like, of course, like, I'm trying to look at this in the prism of this team this season. And as bad as it is right now, that can all change with a couple wins in a row. That could all change with even 2 wins in a row to get some of that good feeling back, to get a little bit of hope and energy and optimism back in your locker room and back in the fan base. Like, I'm a person that is inherently optimistic, and I get excited to watch the Sabres no matter when they're playing, because it's something I take pride in, and I just enjoy watching NHL hockey, even to see the other players that you don't always get a chance to see. So I'm always going to watch and support whenever I can, just because it's something that I enjoy doing. And hockey's one of my favorite sports, and it always will be, and I'll always play it and admire it. But the casual fans obviously don't have as much enthusiasm, and they're only going to stay there if they show.
As long as the Bills are good, man, it's just not enough focus is going to be highlighted on how bad this franchise is, because they're always going to have the Bills to fall back on. You know, even if you did grow up a diehard Sabres fan, like, you know, at least we got the Bills, you know, back in the day during the 17-year drought at the start of it, like, at least we got the Sabres, right? Back in the mid 2000s. For one question here from Iron Noof. Duane, what did you think when Kevin Adams said that Lindy Ruff was comfortable with the existing assistant coaches and staff, et cetera? Doesn't make sense how he didn't bring in his own staff. I think that the Pagulas don't want to pay another staff. There's zero reason for Marty Wilford to be on this bench. There is zero reason, other than that he's Kevin Adams' best friend, that Matt Ellis is still with this staff. They have been nothing but a bunch of losers. They've done nothing but lose. They've contributed nothing to a successful power play. So no, they shouldn't still be on this staff. And I do believe that outside of maybe Seth Appert, which I think that was pretty obvious he was going to, you know, make the jump to, you know, to be an assistant here in Buffalo. Like, I just don't think Lindy really had much of a choice in his assistants, which is a joke, because when is the last time you've heard of a brand new NHL, not a brand new coach, but a new coach coming into an organization and not being able to hire his own staff? A guy, mind you, Lindy Ruff, who's been in around the league for almost 50 years, probably could have put together a decent staff.
Yeah, he absolutely could have. And even the Appert decision, it appears that he's in a little bit over his head in terms of what he was brought in to do and the tangible changes he was supposed to make, especially to the power play. The power play is arguably worse than last season. And the only reason it's even a tiny bit better is because in the middle part of what has happened so far this season, they actually had a pretty good stretch. But I think it's now for 60% of the year, they are 1 for 47 on the power play. And that includes the beginning of the season when they were over 25. And I think they are now in a 1 for 22 stretch. Yeah. And then in the middle, they appeared to figure something out, especially when they were out here on the road. But for the majority of the season, they've been the worst power play in the league, with no sense of direction, no sense of purpose, no options, no, like Lindy said it today at practice, there was no speed, there was no toughness, there was no creativity. There's nothing that is giving you any type of confidence that this power play could do anything other than do their little drop pass, try to carry it into the zone,
dude.
and then get it taken away and then shot down the ice 5 or 6 times.
Whatever happened to dump and chase even, man? Like with the speed they have, they can win those races to pucks.
I mean, ideally, like you want to have controlled entries.
No,
But,
I agree.
yeah.
But when it's not working, just why not try that?
You can't bang your head against the wall and expect for something to change if you're not doing anything different. You need to be more creative, even if it's a light dump, even if it's a cross-corner dump, anything else that could give yourself a better chance to have possession in the zone and set up a play. But currently, I mean, if I were them, I would watch. I don't know who has the top power play unit in the league. I would bet that it's potentially Winnipeg, potentially Colorado. I would just watch the video department. I'm sure could do this. Watch every ounce of available film of what they're doing to be successful. Not only on entries, but once they get possession in the zone, what they're doing to even have set plays or just even get shots on net, because even when they have possession, they're not getting as many shots on net as they need. So that's what I would encourage, but I'm not an NHL coach, so what is that?
Another couple comments here. Panthers seem to be right on the cusp of being a strong team, but kept falling short. Zito came in and brought in Horny and Gudas to help change the team's identity and culture. He wasn't afraid to move out young guys, get some dead weight off the team, and bring in guys who needed a shot. It's worked. Like again, and we've said this a couple times. I understand there's guys that no move clause, but you're not entitled to that. You're not give that right until you're 27 years old. Like you see a lot about the trade speculation about Brady Tkachuk going to New York. Like I'm pretty sure he can't block a trade for himself right now. How old is he? He's not 27, is he?
No, he's younger than that.
He can't block a trade, I'm pretty sure. So, like, why aren't you looking at guys of that in not Brady Tkachuk? Oh my God, I would pay so much for Brady Tkachuk on this team. He's just what this team needs. But like guys like that, guys who have no choice, like Bowen Byram didn't have a choice. He had to come here. Like those deals got to be out there. They have to be. It's just a matter of what are you willing to pay to find those guys, those culture changing guys, those guys who, like maybe who have already had playoff success earlier in their career. Like they're out there. You just got to go find them. Like Jacob Trouba. I know there's some rumors about Buffalo being sure, but like, not Jacob Trouba. I'm sorry. Guys like Trevor Zegras, even he has no trade protection. Like, what's it take to get that guy in? Like Isaac Rosen. Like, what is his value? Is that value is like a third liner? Are we really that psyched about Noah Ostlund? Our picks? Like, you can't tout the time is now and say the time is now, but then not make those moves that I imagine are probably out there. Like it was talked about that there are a lot of teams talking, calling about Dylan Cousins apparently, according to like different insiders like Elliot Friedman. But like, okay, maybe Dylan Cousins is a no. Okay, I can understand why. Like you still have a lot of hope for him. I do too. But like there are other players on this roster you can move out. There are other prospects that you can move out. Like, are you having those discussions? Are you willing to overpay to get those players in here? Like, realistically, if Ottawa's GM called you tomorrow and said, hey, we want 2 firsts and Consta Helenius, and pick a player on this roster not named Rasmus Dahlin for Brady Tkachuk straight up, are you saying no?
Well,
would you say no?
Not Tage Thompson, but yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. But you know what I mean? Like, how are you saying no to that? Those deals have to be out there. You're just going to be willing to pay the price to go get those players. And another good comment here from Chad Cousins. The organization needs to hire a staff of sports psychologists to work with these kids because they are mentally weak. The whole core is so fragile that whenever things don't go how they thought they go, they completely fall apart and revert back to their old habits of panicking. And we've literally heard that, like, in whispers of that in their post-game comments, like after the loss to Colorado. It's like, oh yeah, we thought we had that one after the first period. That's a mentally fragile comment to make.
I mean, I really also believe that, as much as everybody says, like, that's also on Lindy. Like this group this season, like this coaching staff, Lindy Ruff, as long as he's been around, for them to continue to say that we are panicking, that also falls on him.
It does.
He needs to get through to this group, as young as they are, but they've also had a good, like they've
had a good amount of time in the
excuses anymore for experience. Like he needs to get through to them too. So it's not just the players. It's obviously the ownership, the management, and the coaching. It's a combination of all four things at the moment. And yeah, I mean, I would hope that they do have psychologists in the building already. Like, I don't know for a fact that they don't. I think a lot of professional sports teams have those resources at the moment. So I would be interested to find that out definitively. But yeah, they need a lot of help. But it does start on the ice, and it starts with playing sound hockey and obviously when you have a lead, protecting it and just closing out games, which they haven't done.
New comment here from a new commenter. Shout out to Hostile Uterus on YouTube. Terry doesn't want to spend money on a new staff, a hockey ops president. No way he's spending money on a sports shrink. I mean, it is mind-blowing that this team hasn't invested in a sports president of hockey ops since Pat LaFontaine. Like, it is mind-blowing. There's plenty of guys out there, alumni included, that you could just reach out to and might take the job. Like, I personally don't understand it. You know, I don't know. I just, before we get out of here, Hurls, what did you think? Did you see the footage of Biz? Not to change subjects. Did you see the footage?
I did. Yeah, we put a story up on it this afternoon.
Oh my God, man. We'll get right back to the Sabres here in a second, but he was not exaggerating that story at all. Like, he was attacked immediately. He went over there and then chased through 3 different parking lots until he got to the CVS.
Yeah, I think it would have been.
He was still standing.
Given his stature, it would have been pretty dumb for him to exaggerate that story. And also, he probably knew that there were surveillance cameras and there was footage that was going to come out. So I never doubted the severity of it, but it is pretty crazy to see. And shout out to him for obviously holding his own in that situation and knowing when to get out of there too. He ran into that CVS as fast as he possibly could. Once the actual violence started, when he was on the ground and being kicked in the head, boot fucked as he appropriately called it. But that's a scary situation, and it could have been a lot worse. I found it. We got the body camera footage of the main guy who's now being charged with a felony. And
none of them showed up to their court date, right?
Yeah, to hear him basically just deny any. I mean, of course, he didn't want to say anything that would be held against him in the court of law, but he basically didn't say that he was there at all, that anything happened whatsoever.
Even though there's video footage.
And just the smugness that this dude had related to this incident was pretty appalling. And who knows if the stories about them all being Irish travelers or anything related to that are all corroborated and true and whatnot. It seems to be pretty cut and dry, but at the same time, you never really know. So I just think from just an isolated perspective, obviously, I think the main thing is that Biz looks as good as he has been, obviously sticking up for the people that he cared about at the restaurant. And it's fortunate that he got out of there alive, because it could have been really, really bad.
It could have been really bad. And props to him for holding his own and doing the right thing and trying to protect the staff there. I have a lot of respect for that. And, I know those guys get a bad rap sometimes, but like, how can you look at this situation at face value and be like, I'm happy he got involved, and I hope these guys get what they have coming to them. Any final thoughts from you before we head out of here on episode 173? Just on the week to come. I know we have the Rangers coming tomorrow. Kind of getting ready to end this homestand. Is that in New York? It's in Buffalo, isn't it?
It's in Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting close to ending this long homestand. How bad they've played at home, and is there a light at the end of the tunnel, like with what you've seen so far, and just their response to, to losing the games that they have, and just the panicking when the other team presses when they have a lead? Because in a lot of these games, they did get the early lead, and they just found ways to blow it. Like, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel, or could this get really hairy really fast and turn into 10 games pretty quick?
I do, just given how bad the Eastern Conference is this season. I'm choosing to look at it from a glass half full perspective of them being only 3 points out of a wild card spot after a 7-game losing streak. Thankfully, they have gotten a few loser points, but you really have to approach it from a game by game perspective. Like, you've got to finish out the homestand against the Rangers, do whatever you possibly can to get a win. Treat it like a playoff game. Treat it with playoff intensity. Obviously, be responsible in your own end, but get as many opportunities as you possibly can on that against a team that is also pretty desperate, is reeling at the moment. Of course, they eventually got the deal done with Shesterkin, and I think that's good for them. But outside of that, I don't think there's too many guys on this team that are confirmed to be on this team for the next few years.
Yeah.
So you have an opportunity. You have a lot more opportunities given that the season's not even a third done. So yeah, you hit the panic button a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're not that far out of it, aside from also being at the bottom of the conference. So there's a choice to make. There's a choice with the way that they want to play. There's a choice with how they can react to at situations that they've not responded well to during games recently. And I do think it's possible. I'm not going to be a person that is going to say that, oh, they're the Sabres, they won't do this. No, I think this team is capable. I really do. The roster might not be the best, but they've shown at different points that they are capable of playing well and getting wins in this league. So obviously they need to prove it, but I'm at least cautiously optimistic that they can, and they can get back on track here to where they were at the end of November.
I hope you're right, man. Because I mean, you could rip off a 3-game winning streak here out of nowhere and be right back in like that's the thing with how open the East is and how bad some of the teams are that you weren't really expecting to struggle this much, like New York. You know, that's a huge game tomorrow night. That's a 4-point game. A team that you're not a division game, but the team you're competing with for a wild card spot. I think Philly won tonight. I just saw a tweet from Mike Harrington on that. I think Philly won. Philly winning 5-1 early is winning 5-1 early in the third at Columbus. So assuming that holds, New York Rangers will drop out of a wild card spot. It will either be Philadelphia or Tampa Bay or New York or the Islanders, which that will slot in there. And Sabres will currently fall 4 points out of the second wild card spot. But if you win tomorrow night, you gain some ground. You win 2 more, you're right back in the conversation. And that's, I hate to try and be an optimist, but like that, but it's there.
What else do we have left?
Yeah.
Like what am
I supposed to not watch? Watch?
Like, of course we're going to watch. Like I personally think it's, I mean, it may sound naive, but it's way more appealing to be optimistic about it than just entirely being negative. Of course, like you can react to bad things that happen and be upset about it, but you might as well have a little bit of hope. Like this team is not the exact same teams that have not made the playoffs for the past 13 years. Yep. It is a different group. Of course, they've lost 7 in a row, but it doesn't mean that they're out of it by any stretch of the imagination. And I do think that, while the roster's not the best, they've shown that they can do it. So we'll see. I think they got to approach it game by game. And like you said, tomorrow, treat it like a playoff game, and then you go from there.
Yeah, I agree. I hate saying this because I've already said it's like we're going to really find out, what this team is made of over the next, week or two. Get out of this 7-game skid and try and string together some points here and hopefully get some guys to turn around. It kind of looks like that Jack Quinn might not return to the lineup anytime soon. He's been healthy, scratched 2 games in a row. I think, they haven't come right out and said it, but I'm hoping that they scratch him for 2 weeks and then he goes to Rochester for one of those rehabilitation stints, which I think, he can be there for 2 weeks or 5 games, whatever it is. Let him get some confidence back. I don't know what else to do with him. I don't know. Maybe we'll finally see a move, made by Kevin Adams out of, just out of opportunity or desperation. I don't know. We'll see. But that being said, man, thanks everybody who always tunes in with us, whether it's here on Two Goalies on Mic or on our post-game shows. I'll hang up and listen. Please, if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button. Please hit the little bell so it notifies you when we go live. If you're on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you're watching, please make sure that you're sharing it, liking it, subscribing. You can see our handles right there on the screen. I'm at Duane S39, Hurls13. Find us at Two Goalies One Mic on Twitter, Instagram. You can find us both on Blue Sky now. And of course, if you're listening just audio only, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you subscribe. And leave us a good review. So we'd appreciate it. We appreciate all of you. you know, I don't know how else myself and Connor would get through all this if it wasn't for you guys. You know, you're here with us every single time, and you have no idea how much we appreciate that. And we're going to stay here with you guys to give you a place to vent as we vent. So that being said, this has been episode 173 of Two Goalies, One Mic, brought to you by Fattey Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room. Make sure you go pick up, while supplies last, the 24 Beers of Christmas Advent calendar. Great gift for the holiday season or for a gift for yourself. And check out Buffalo Go Apparel and check out all their cool Bills and Sabres locally designed gear. I have some good stuff on there. You can find them at Buffalo Go Co on Instagram and Twitter, at Fattey Beer on Instagram and Twitter, fattybeer.com. I am Duane for Connor Hurley from Two Goalies, One Mic. We will talk to you. We'll see you tomorrow night. We'll see how things go. We'll see if we have it in us. But as always, guys, go Sabres.